told people get their popcorn ready. This is going to be good today.
I mean, it's not like we have anything timely to talk about, Dr. Ray. I don't know what could be popping in the world today. I kid. We all know what's happening. You had a quote in response to the Will Smith and Chris Rock situation, which we talked about a lot yesterday. But you had a slightly different angle. Yesterday was more, I think, of a, let's just respond. Let's talk about how we feel. We all saw it. It took a lot to sort of figure out what was happening. But I saw that you had posted something that I think brings us to the next phase of our analysis. And this is not about the kiki and the hot tea for Will and Jada and Chris and like what's really going on. This is really about repair of harm. And this is really about recognizing when we are contributing to situations, to circumstances in ways that might really reflect how we feel, but perhaps are not the best use of our energy or not the best use of whatever it is we want to contribute to that situation. You had said something to the effect of a reputation takes a lifetime to build and only a moment to destroy. And how did that come up for you as one of the more salient points when you looked at what happened at the Oscars between Chris Rock and Will Smith?
Well, I think for me, I watched it live. I love movies, so I'm watching it in that moment. And I think for people who saw just the clip, I don't think they really got the gravity of the context of this particular Oscars. And I just want to try to quickly unpack it. Please interrupt me before I go on this rant. So the thing is if we go back a few years now, we know that the Oscars So White became a hashtag. It became a thing.
Right.
Jada Pinkett Smith was one of the people on the forefront of that. And now we have a moment at this Oscars where you and your husband are sitting on the front row. I think it became very clear as the award show went along that Will Smith was going to win this award. And I want to unpack the context for people. Will Packard is producing the Oscars. One of the first time Black people are doing that.
We should say one of the first time all Black people, because apparently when Roland was on yesterday, he pointed out that there have been other times when Black people have had key positions, but I think this was the first all Black, all the things, red, black, and green type of approach. So go ahead. I just wanted to make that clarification.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, from top down and opening up the Oscars was Venus and Serena Williams introducing Beyonce, who performed in a tennis green ensemble at the tennis court where Venus and Serena Williams would practice with their dad. That is how it opened. We have D Nice on the ones and twos. We had a queer Afro-Latino woman win for Best Supporting Actress. Of course, that was Ariana DuBois. And then we had Samuel L. Jackson and Danny Glover winning an honorary award. And then when Chris Rock was giving out the award, he ended up giving it to Questlove. Why is that symbolic? Right. Because we think about the ordering. Questlove is from Philly. Who also is from Philly? Will Smith, who then essentially won the next biggest award. So that was the context that I came from. And what I realized in that moment, and I think Denzel Washington said it best. At your highest moment, be careful. That's when the devil comes for you. And what I've thought about is the legacy of Will Smith in that particular moment. And there are multiple sides to this. There's the professional side, there's the personal side, and then there is the Black side, which is what we're also talking about here. So I'll try to quickly unpack these. First big thing is Chris Rock said it best. Chris Rock, I saw him in stand-up. He is amazing. I've never seen someone work the room where you make a statement, a joke, and white people are laughing and Black people are upset. Then you make another statement and Black people are laughing and white people are upset. He does the same thing for men and women. And he had something where he would say, there's a reason to push an old lady down a flight of steps. You just don't do it. Like that is, I think, pretty symbolic of what happened.
I'm mad I snickered at that.
That's what I'm saying.
Proud of myself for that.
That's what I'm saying.
You just snuck that in, Dr. Ray.
I mean, look, Chris Rock's jokes do that. And of course, we know there's a history here, not just in terms of Chris Rock talking about the Smith family, but also what happens when you have a red table show to air all of your dirty laundry in the house. Can you really get upset when people then hang that dirty laundry out to dry? Accordingly, what I also saw in that moment was Will Smith trying to reclaim his masculinity, his role in the household. And why is that important? Well, a lot of people have talked about that, but I saw a slightly different side to that. What I saw was Jada Pinkett Smith sitting there. Now, there was a part in the clip that we don't see because Will was walking to the stage. I'm curious to see what happened with Will and Jada with those looks, because there are only looks that couples give each other, particularly when they've been together so long. You don't have to say anything. Will Smith was laughing. He reacted. The other thing is this: the same way that people have been talking about how men need to protect women and stand up for women, particularly Black men standing up for Black women. What about Black women also standing up and helping Black men to heal? By airing out all this dirty laundry, it's very clear that Will Smith's mental and emotional health has been harmed. And when you're in a relationship, it's not just one-sided when it comes to harm, when it comes to fighting back. We have to be armed when it comes to our mental and emotional health. And that was one of the big things that I saw.
So that question about what happened that went from Will smiling to walking up on that stage, because when he first walked up on the stage, I'm like, okay, maybe he is taking on the Richard, King Richard persona. He's a method actor. Maybe, he's still caught up in, but we don't see what happened. And I actually saw a meme this morning that had took some of the still shots of the looks that they were giving each other. And it ends with Jada giving a look like William. And then the last look is him like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So you said something that I felt a visceral reaction to as a woman, as a wife, and that was the role that women play. And you said, what about Black women standing up for Black men? And I think that had I not heard something last night, I would have been like, oh, hell no, Dr. Ray, we can't have that be the analysis. Last night, Roland Martin on his show, because we talked about this with him yesterday when he was here on these airways, but last night on his show, he talked about a few of the angles that you mentioned, and then he had added an additional one. And he said to the effect that Black men have to stop putting each other in positions where this is going to be the outcome. This is my paraphrase. And then Black women, he talked about the fact that, and let me personalize this for a minute. There are some situations where if I'm with my husband and he knows I'm about to get hot and I'm about to get riled up, he like, don't do it, because you're going to make me have to get in a situation. And I don't know who these people are. So if you buck up, I'm going to have your back and I'm going to buck up. But then we're going to be in a situation where both of us bucking up against people we don't really know. We ain't got no kin around. Like there have been some times where he has had to say, if you go there as a man, I am going to defend you. I'm going to show up for you as the king of my household because you are my queen. Just don't put me in a situation where by showing up for you, I'm going to get my head cut off, right? So there is a multiple sides of a relationship that I think you're speaking to. And because we don't see what was happening between the two of them, we do not know what turned his laugh into a, let me head on up and handle my business the way Mr. might against the Sealy situation. We don't really know, but I think there is something to be said about a pause and a reassessment of how you're going to address a situation. One of the things we talked about in the moment of gratitude this morning, and one of the things I always talk about, is being able to be emotionally mature. And emotional maturity requires us to say, I may have been hurt in this situation. I may have been harmed in this situation. How do I resolve it in a way that's not going to explode this situation in my face and end up creating shrapnel injuries, emotional and otherwise, for all of the people around us? When we think about how we conceptualize of masculinity, how we conceptualize Black masculinity, and that, I need a soldier, you know what I mean? Like that sort of mentality. Dr. Ray, how are we supposed to reframe how we interact with each other so that what happened between the three of them, Chris, Will, and Jada, can become instructive on what we should be doing as opposed to be an example of all those choices gone horribly wrong?
I mean, it's an amazing question. And it's so loaded. And I'll try to break it down this way, and I'll bring in a sociological analysis. So I also want to help people think about the juxtaposition between the cost of composure versus potentially losing something at home. See, we see the professional aspects, Will out laughing. If you notice, people see Will laughing, but laughing can be a coping response that we don't like to talk about. And we saw in a matter of minutes, Will Smith, one of the most powerful men in entertainment, and people could argue otherwise, go from laughing to anger to violence to crying in a matter of minutes. And he said when he gave his speech, he said, love will make you do crazy things. See, we have to put that in context. See, the bottom line, people are talking about did Will Smith risk it all? That like I heard Marcellus Wiley, he said a really good quote. He said, never risk it all when there's nothing to gain. That's true. But you know what? Maybe there was something to gain. We're only thinking about it professionally. See, we have to put this in context that over the past year and over the past few years, Will Smith has been very active on social media. And as you know, when you're active on social media, you not only see the good, you see the bad. He's seen all the memes. He's seen everything. He sat down at a red table with his wife and had to have a conversation about his son's friend being in his house with his wife. Like, well, we got to put that in context in terms of what that might do. And it could be argued that another layer of this analysis people have not talked about is Will Smith felt this is the stage to reclaim my masculinity. This is the stage to reclaim my dignity and my place in the household. This is why, because people are talking about the professional consequences. Well, up to this point, there have been none. This dude got back in his seat. He walked on stage. He got that Oscar and he sat back down. But accordingly, when we talk about the cost and benefit analysis from a sociological perspective, there are two concepts I want people to know. The first is anomie. The second is locus of control. Anomie suggests that you have a series of constraints on your life that when you want to act out, you actually can't, right? You have those constraints. Wow. Will Smith does not have those same constraints. His socioeconomic status means that the consequences are not going to be the same. Accordingly, if an average person, particularly a Black man, did that, that joker is sitting in jail right now. Right? That's right. The consequences are not the same for Will Smith. And I want to be clear that part of what could have happened in that moment was him perceiving he could have reclaimed something. But I want to quickly come back to this point about Jada, right? What some people are saying is that Jada should have grabbed her husband's arm and allowed him to be the man everybody believes he is. See, that's something we got to think about. Accordingly, again, where was Jada's protection of Will's mental and emotional health? He had a whole documentary on YouTube about how he was experiencing mental health and thought about suicide. Like, again, at the expense of men's physical aggression are oftentimes the cost of our mental and emotional health. And that's why he went through those series of emotions. We have to talk about that protection because men are socialized to act out our violence. And it came out in a way that honestly nobody wanted to see. I know I didn't.
Yeah. Well, what do you say to people who say, listen, Jada is a grown woman. Will is a whole ass man, as they say, as the people say. What role does she have in controlling his anger? Shouldn't he be able to control his emotional outlet? How he's done a really good job of masking emotions up until this point. How are we to blame Jada for this or appoint her a role of responsibility over his emotional state? And I guess if we thought about it, let's say Wanda Sykes had made the joke and someone had posed this analogy. I love hypotheticals. This thing that happened, yeah. But let's talk about this thing that didn't happen to see what you would say about that. So let's do that. If Wanda Sykes had made that joke or Regina Hall had made that joke and Jada had gotten upset and walked up to the stage and slapped her, would we have then said, Will should have got your what? Like what would happen had that been in reverse? And are we really talking about a mutual protection that seemed to have failed in that moment on both of their sides?
Yes. So, we should also point out there were 3 women hosting. Like, right, that had various different identities. Two were Black women. They did a phenomenal job. They did. And accordingly, thinking about this, yes, you're exactly right. See, you just said it earlier when you got personal, and I'll get slightly personal as well. When you're in a relationship, like it is two-sided. There are times where my wife lifts me up. There are times where I lift her up, and situational awareness is key. We are a family unit. But one thing I'll say, and this is what's interesting about the Smiths. See, they've been in the limelight for a long time, not just the husband, but the wife too. Both of them are uber famous, not just them, but their kids as well.
The kids, right.
Jaden had a quote where he posted on Twitter where he was like, this is how we do it. Like, I mean, there is something to that about the Smiths that they're a little different that people can't really understand. But accordingly, it is the responsibility of the man and the woman. I'll be saying the exact same thing if Wanda Sykes made a joke and Jada walked up there and smacked her. I would have been like, Will, come on, man. Like you said it best. People know when you're in a relationship and you've been together as long as Will and Jada have. Like I've been married, it'll be 15 years this year. We've been together longer than we haven't been together. Yeah, we don't have to say anything to each other. There is a look and there is a sense of responsibility and protection there. But that disappointment is something you can't ever recover from. And again, this is the big thing for me. Will Smith was getting an award. One of the few Black men to ever receive an award or Black person for a leading
he's worked actor for his entire
or actress
career.
Role. Right, that he should have got for Ali. He got that award for playing a real Black person, a real Black father to Black kids who became some of the greatest people we have ever seen walk the planet. The situational awareness for that context. And instead, what people are taking away from his quote is he's like, oh, I became the crazy father. Man, look, Richard Williams knew what he was doing. Like, that's not the narrative we need. The narrative should have been he was protecting his family. And part of protecting his family is when I watched King Richard, which I love that movie, when he was getting beat up by those gangsters, he looked at that car and saw that if he fought back, it was going to be more consequences for him and his family. That's what protection means. And I'll end with one last quote on this front. One last quote is, Marcellus Wiley said this, and I don't always agree with Marcellus Wiley on a lot of stuff, but he was on point here. He said, there's one thing better than taking up for your woman. It is taking care of your woman. Ooh. See, those are two different things. See, we're not ready to go there because most of us have not been in relationships that are healthy long enough for us to take care of them. And I know for me and mine, I take care of mine. And if that means at the expense of my own masculinity, I can suffer through that. And I think Will Smith had for a very, very long time. And this is the other thing. What, again, I want to go back to, maybe he thought this is if I'm going to do it, I need to do it on the biggest stage. This is the other thing. There's something about being in the company of your peers. See, we got to think. Only until recently have we got out of pandemic. We got out of the socialization of holding back our emotions the way that Ketanji Brown Jackson did during her confirmation hearings, where she probably thought about getting up, smacking a whole bunch of people, but she didn't do it. Again, there's a reason to do a lot of things. You just don't do it. And I think what happened with Will Smith, it was sensory overload. Think about who he apologized to. And I knew he wasn't going to apologize to Chris Rock. No, he apologized to the Academy, and he apologized to his peers. Because see, at the end of the day, that is oftentimes whose opinions matter the most of you are your colleagues, right? Wow. And so I think Jada was probably fine with what he did, honestly, like based on what we know. But then he thought about how other people were looking at him, and that's what bothered him.